This is the Thai Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 127. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Thai Millionaire, founder and director of the Thai Capital Investment Club. We have countless numbers of members in the stock side, a lot of members in the real estate side. We're doing some really cool things in the Michigan market and also planning to do some really cool stuff in Los Angeles soon. So looking forward to that. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear the stories of successful examples because they do exist. We want people to learn that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. With us today, we have Mr. Lamon Woods out of Monroe, Louisiana. He goes by the Instagram name at 1-800-Hustler. He has 50 properties right now. He's doing some really cool stuff. So I wanted to have him come on the show. He's, from what I've seen, somebody who's very transparent. So you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this show. And, so welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, man? Appreciate you for having me, man.
So, can you give us some background on who you are, what life was like growing up, and kind of what brought you to where you are now?
Well, yeah, my name is Lamon Woods. Like I said, I'm in Monroe, Louisiana. Background growing up, just had a two-parent home, mom and dad. They were both hardworking. Had 4 brothers, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And just not typical life. We lived in the hood, but I always look at it, my advantage was I had a mom and a dad. So I always seen them work hard, even with them having 5 kids and not making a high salary. Neither one of them, we didn't hurt for a lot. We didn't miss a lot, played sports. And my sister was Miss Carol and different things like that. So we always had things. And I seen mom and dad work as a team growing up. So they kind of propelled me to be for the team atmosphere with me and my wife today. So
right.
That's kind of just the typical story. My daddy was kind of like a hustler. Like my daddy would go to work, he'd wake up at 6 in the morning, he'd go to work at 3, he'd get off. He used to build cabinets. And he was the maintenance man at a rehabilitation center. So he used to maintenance all the properties and take care of them. So he's been working on properties and around real estate since he was 15 years old, and he's 50 now. So I kind of I didn't want no part of it growing up, but my dad and his best friend had properties, did different things. And my uncle, at least somebody in my family at least owned 1 or 2 properties. So I kind of grew around it. But I wasn't around it, but I always knew we went to the family reunions and different things like that, like real estate.
Real estate. So I kind of want you to expand on the 2-parent household thing because I think it's very important. Can you talk about, just more of the advantages that come from that?
Well, the advantages for me were just seeing life from 2 different perspectives, hearing mom say something and then hearing dad say something, and just seeing the teamwork, because you realize if 2 people where we stay, it's not a high income area. So if 2 people working towards something, we had a nice home, my mom had a Lexus, she had a nice truck, SUV, my dad had things. So just seeing them work together and growing up in the neighborhood, me and my friends was really close-knit, but none of them had a dad but one of my friends. So they'll look at my dad, Mr. Kurt, he was like the neighborhood dad. He was a positive influence. He cut kids' hair and different things like that. So that was real big, man, just hearing mom say something, and then they getting that other perspective from dad.
Right. I love it. I think it's so important. I don't think that necessarily one is more important than the other. I think you need both. And so it's dope to see, if you look at statistics, statistically, people who kind of grow up in a 2-parent household do better. And, it's not just the money that comes in, but it's also, the balance. It's also just having that presence of a male figure and a female figure in the house at the same time and watching that dynamic kind of coexist is very important. So you wear that shirt a lot. It's funny because I was expecting to see that shirt. What does the shirt say?
Woods Family Estates, man. I always look, YG said on the last time I checked, forget wearing they clothes, I wear my own. So I always took that motto, that's the game. I stay in a small area, so I look at trying to be a big fish in a small pond. So wherever I go, I'm ripping what I built, what I stand on, my foundation for my family every day, day in and day out.
Right. And so you said you kind of saw real estate at a young age. So to kind of take that back to a fundamental level, why real estate? Why real estate for them? Why real estate for you?
For them, it was just like a job. Like I said, my dad, my uncles, them worked at GB Cooley, and that's what they did for a living. So real estate for me, kind of just something I latched on to. My dad friend had properties growing up, so I used to always ask him like, man, how I do this and how I do that and different things like that. I used to always bug him and different things like that. And for me, we bought our first property to live in back in 2015, and I was just like, I didn't want to work a job. So I kind of like went back to what I seen as a kid. Like instead of trying to go create some new idea, different things like that, I thought there'd be too much stress on me. So I was like, I'm gonna revert to what I seen and what I grew up around. So that's kind of what I did.
I like it. So you bought your first house in 2015 and you scaled it to 50 in 4 years.
Yeah, 2015, man, it was crazy because we stayed in the hood. Me and my wife was in our earlier 20s. We stayed in the hood. Our rent was like $550. And my wife came to me one day. She was like, we should buy this property. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, no. I'm like, what purpose of me buying a property in the hood that I don't see myself living in for the next couple of years? But then she was just like, she told me one time, and then we talked about, I kind of threw it off. And then she told me again, I threw it off. And then one day she went and talked to the property manager. She went to pay the rent at the property management company. And then she asked the guy that was managing the properties at Century 21, and he said, yeah, I think my investor is willing to sell. So he doubled back and called her and gave her a price. The price was $15,000. And she came and told me, and I was like, no, hell no. I was totally against it again. And then she just kept saying, well, we don't have to pay rent no more and different things like that. Then I went and talked to my mom and dad about it. And I was like, well, $15,000. And we was already living in the property a year prior to purchasing it. So we didn't have to do a lot of renovations. Mostly it was like cosmetic. And I was like, people drive vehicles that cost more than that. So I was like, man, all right. So she sucked me into it. But that was the best thing that happened. As I always say, shout out to my wife, really a husband and wife team. She do a lot behind the scenes that, like, people see me and I get all the credit, but she just got this going on the phone for me. I don't know how to do none of that stuff.
We got to get her on the podcast.
Yeah, that's my right-hand man right there, man. Like, I am who I am today because of her.
I was reading this book, the Gucci Mane book, and Gucci Mane, I think either his grandparents or his parents, probably his grandparents. It was in the South, and they were in a situation where like the company was providing the housing, and then like the white folks in the area got mad because the housing was so good, and a lot of the black people, they left. But he said that because his grandfather had a money-minded wife, they bought their house and they still own that house to this day. And so it kind of speaks to the dynamics. Like in the beginning of this conversation, we we're talking about like the power of a father, but there's so much power in a wife that can allow a man to really become who he can become, that if you don't have that, you kind of fall a little bit short. So I've experienced it. You've experienced it. Anybody on the show's experienced it. There truly is power having that woman behind you because their head is on straight in a lot of ways that maybe ours isn't.
Yeah, because for me, my wife seen who I can be from like day one. After high school, I didn't go to college or nothing like that, and all my friends did. So I had a big low point in my life, and like she was always encouraging me and supporting me. I used to like to buy all the Jordans, take all the trips to New Orleans to buy you classics. She used to be like, Lamon, we can't do that. We can't do that forever. So like the money management skills, she put me on game on how to get my credit up. Like she put me on all that, and that helped me prepare to what we got to today.
Dope. So that was the first property. How did you scale it to where you are now?
So with that first property, we bought it for $15,000, like I said, cash. Like we had got income tax. Man, we went broke as shit. Like we came back, we only had a couple $100. So like I was like, man, like it was crazy, but that was a huge sacrifice at the time because I was 25 years old. My wife was like 27, 28. So it was a huge sacrifice. But then the following year, 2016, my wife was like, well, let's buy another property to live in and we can use the cash flow from that property and rent it out. So I was like, all right, that's a good idea. So we went and got our credit up, did what we had to do, got an FHA loan. We had purchased a home that we reside in now. We purchased I don't know at the time, 100,000 plus home, 2,000 some square foot. At the time, we just purchased a home just to upgrade our living because we figured like we had the cash flow coming from the other property.
Right.
So a thing that had happened was when we moved into our property on Christmas Eve, after we purchased it and we closed, and then the new year came and I doubled back and rented that property out. I had got a $400 deposit and a $575 rent check. I was like, at the time, I didn't even make that at my job. I was like, man, I just damn near got $1,000 like this. So I was like, man, just by signing the lease and talking to some people and handing over some keys. So I was like, if I can do this again. And I grew up in the area of cash, like cash. Like that in my family where I grew up was like death. Like, don't mess with that. Like, you don't want no part of that. So I was like, if I can buy one house a year, the goal originally was do it the same way. Cash, get income tax time, because you don't make a lot of money. You get a nice sum during income tax time. That was like me and my wife re-up. Like, we'll re-up like this. So I was like, we can buy. So I rented that house out. Everything was going smooth. But by me renting that house, I made me get on Bigger Pockets, YouTube, and learn as much as I can, man. I read about 50 books. When I go to work, instead of listening to music, I listen to podcasts, and I love music. That was a sacrifice. Then I start reading books on my lunch break. I went talking on the phone and just being on YouTube day in and day out and on Bigger Pockets, reading all the forums. I like to say I went to YouTube University and I got a degree and I don't got no student loan debt. So like, cause like I heavily educated myself. That's why I'm so big on like self-taught. Like I'm self-taught, and that kind of propelled us to what we are now. So we bought that property. Then in 20, like a couple months later, we had bought another property for $6,000. We saved some money up, got cash flow from the other property, and we saved some money up, and we bought a property for $6,000. But when we bought that property, we kind of got in over our head. So we kind of got in over our head because that property is like a 5-bedroom, 2-bath. We was gonna have to go in and do all the work and stuff like that. Some we ain't experienced, so we ended up selling that property, and we sold it we paid $6,000 plus closing costs, came out to be like $6,500 and some bucks, and we ended up selling that property for like $5,000. We took a $1,500 loss, and this was before we got our bread up, so that hurt it. But we got that deal off our head, something that we weren't gonna be able to manage and maintain.
So what made that deal that you were unable to maintain it? Was it the rehab cost? Was it what was it?
Yeah, it was a big house, man. I like to call them chopped up houses where they just keep adding on and adding on. Like you might have, like they might bust a back wall out and add on. They needed total new electrical and different things like that. And them the type of properties my dad, his best friend, used to buy and work on when I was growing up. So I thought that I can manage it too. But I seen that it was just kind of like too much. It was too much, and I was just like, I'm cool. So we kind of sold it to another investor and passed on it and moved on.
See, the cool thing about real estate, though, is that you didn't lose everything. You only lost a small sum. You lost $1,500.
Yeah.
But you didn't lose the $6,000 that you put up because you still had something you could sell at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take that same $6,000 and you go on a trip to Cabo, that $6,000 is gone. There is no salvage value. There is no money that you can get to minimize your loss. And that's why real estate so powerful, and that's why buying assets is so powerful. Is that at the end of the day, there's still something that you can get out of it.
Yeah, you don't get no return on the Cabo trip. Got to have assets to pay for that.
Two things that are really dope that I heard that I wanted to make sure people caught. And the first is that buying the house that you could buy allowed you to buy the house that you wanted to buy. And a lot of people, what they don't understand is that it's the assets to get you to the life that you want to live. So sometimes you got to buy the home that's going to let you buy the home that you want, because the people that live in Newport Beach and these other areas, they don't got high-paying jobs. They got strong asset columns. They own a business. They own a real estate portfolio. They own stocks. They own something that's kicking off massive income to then allow them to live that life. The other thing that I saw is that by taking action, it forced you into education mode. And a lot of people, what they want to do is they want to learn at the outset, and they don't realize that once they get into the market, it's going to really force them to learn what they need to learn, because you have that pressure. Your back's against the wall. You got to learn or die. So that's one of the things I've taken out of that.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like. When I rented that property out, I was scared, man. I was like, man, I'm a first-time landlord. I don't know what to do. So I was reading up on all the laws, and I just went on Google one day, and Bigger Pockets like kind of popped up. So I started reading the forums, and it was a success for something. Another guy on YouTube, it was two black guys. I used to watch them a whole bunch, and he used to talk about like different things and stuff like that. So yeah, once you get in that situation and you're back against the wall, you like, my life, everything I had riding on this, because I also had an emotional attachment to that property, because like that's where our kids was born at. That was the first property that we bought. So it was kind of like one of those things like, man,
Just
like I had to figure this out. If it failed, then it's on me. So I can't let it fail.
right. So in the beginning of all of this, you were doing all the work yourself, right?
Yeah, we were doing all the work ourselves, man. And I had my dad, me, my wife, and my dad. No team.
Yeah.
I just got a small team, like 3 months ago, man. And you know, I be listening to people, they saying, like when I go to landlord clubs, they be like, man, how you manage all those doors yourself? How you do this? How you run I just looked at it like my life, I had to get it done. Like I knew
Yeah.
my end goal was to be able to retire from the job. I used to always say for like 4 years, I used to say, I'm gonna retire from my job at 30. I'm about to give me a brand new truck and I'm gonna have me a retirement report. I was speaking that into existence for years,
Yeah.
and that happened. My wife bought me a new truck, had me a little party. She brought all that to life for me. So like, I always looked at it like it was hard and challenging managing the units, working on them, because I used to go to work, get off work, and go work on the properties. Like I'm a big fan of football. I watch football all the time, but I didn't have no weekends for like 3 years because of like it was work. Then get off work on the property. On the weekends we was off, so instead of just sitting at home watching football, I could go work on the properties, go to Home Depot, get material, and just do what I got to do because I knew the end goal was to get out the job. And I also learned valuable education while I was working on the properties and different things too.
Yeah. So I would assume that since you were in the mud, since you were doing the work yourself, that actually made you better at buying deals and analyzing the deals you bought later on.
Yeah, that too, and it also helped me with like construction costs. So now, if I call a guy and say I got a 900 square foot house, the whole house needs sheetrock, and he give me a crazy bid, I knew how to be like, because you know I learned all that from my dad. Shout out to my dad, that's my main man. Like that's my role model. So I learned all that from him, and that helps you too. That's why I always encourage people, man, even if you don't take the model I took, if you pay somebody to do it, go over there and check on the progress, see what's going on, see why they doing X, Y, Z, because one day you might have to hire somebody else to do X, Y, Z. Now you know how much it costs to hook a sink up. A guy come over there and say $300, and you done did it before like me. You like, oh no, man, I know this ain't nothing but $125 job. So like it's kind of that education in construction and the education on looking at numbers and different things like that help you evaluate deals better.
Yeah. It's like they say, in order to get passive income, you got to do a lot of activity or you got to put a lot of work in because that work now allows you to take a step back and manage and say, okay, like I know how much this is supposed to cost, how long it's supposed to take because I've done it before. I didn't just read a book or listen to a podcast and they said this, like, nah, I've done it. And there's power in the do.
Yeah, it was hard too, man, having a full-time job because I worked like 40 hours a week and I just had Saturdays and Sundays off. So, you know, when you're chasing your dream and you sacrificing everything, man, my wife's sacrificing, you know, you have a relationship problem. Ain't no dates. Our dates was painting a rental property. My
Yeah.
wife know how to do flooring, paint, all that. Them was our dates, you know. And
Yeah.
like far as friends, if they wanted to come visit me on the weekends, you had to come meet me at a property. Like I wasn't leaving from over there to come holler at you. Like it was like I knew I had to take advantage of them Saturday and Sundays off to be off like I am now every day. So that was my mind. It hurt it like hell. It was a
That's just hard.
grind, man. But I watched the Nip interview and he said I did everything in my process. And when I watched that interview, it changed my life. And I was just like, it hurt, but it's all money in because now, so when a guy come over and say, oh, I'm gonna charge you $5,000 to fix this house, I just go get my wife and my dad and we'll fix the house. And the only thing we come out of is material. I get my dad a couple $100, so out of that $5,000, I probably only spent $3,000. Now what that $2,000 do? Go into the next deal. So now you can keep on flowing it by doing it yourself. So it's kind of like the all money in concept and then doing everything in your process.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So what would you say was your most difficult property?
My most difficult property. Let me see. My most difficult property. Most difficult property was. Before we get to that, though, let me tell you what changed my life, though, and this probably
Let's
helped
do
the
it.
audience. So, when I told you I bought the property, and I was trying to buy a property cash every. I was trying to buy a property cash every year. So I went and said I learned about wholesaling on YouTube. So I learned about wholesale, and I was telling my wife, I came home excited. I was like, man, I'm gonna be a wholesaler, wholesale some properties and get some money so we can put with our income tax, our jobs, and we can buy a property every year. But I got it. So one time I ended up getting a property on the contract, and then I got a property on the contract, and I went to sell it. I couldn't find no buyers. It was a really bad property. I got it for like $4,500. I was trying to sell it for $65. So one day I was just riding, and I ended up calling this We Buy House signs, and this guy answered the phone. So the guy answered the phone. He sounded kind of young, and so I asked him to come check the property out. I told him the numbers. He was like, "I'm gonna come check it out, man." And when this guy pulled up, he was young. He was driving a big truck, and I was just like, "Man, I wonder what the hell he do." So I tried to sell him a property, but God didn't make it where I sold him the property. But this guy was like my real estate guardian angel. Like, me and him still close to this day. Like, he like changed my mindset from cash to OPM. So I was talking to him. He didn't want to buy the property, but we sat outside and talked for like an hour. He was just like, man, I do this. I've been doing this for the living for the last 3 years. And I was like, how many properties you got? He was like, I got 70 of them. He was like, I got 2 employees and stuff like that. And I was like, this guy was like 32. He was 31 at the time. I was like, man, hell no, I'm doing something wrong. So I was like, what you do? He told me his process and how he did and how he scaled up. And he put me on his lender. He told me about his lender and different things like that too. So I was like, all right. I was still against the bank and stuff like that. But then I knew like I wanted to scale. So one day I ended up skipping work. I was a merchandiser, so I had like the leisure, having free time, driving to the stores and stocking the product. So I put on my church shirt and all that shit in the car. I went to the bank and talked to the lender. And when I went into the bank, because I had already been educating myself when I bought that first property, man, I had already knew so much. When I was talking to the lender, he just shook my hand, was like, bring me your tax returns, bring me this, let's do business. Because like, instead of me going in there asking for stuff, because I always feel like I tell my friends, a banker is not a financial advisor. It's up to you to be better prepared to go in there and say, hey, what type of loan, I want to invest in real estate. What type of loan products do you guys offer? So when I asked him that, and the questions I was asking him, he was kind of blown away, and he was giving me some better advice. So after then, the rest was, I made that sacrifice. I could have got fired from work, man. Everything. I used to skip out of work and go look at deals. When that guy called me, I skip out of work and go to lunch with him. So that made a difference for me getting off at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, because I go take an hour lunch break. But I knew I was chasing my dream, man, and I knew like I had to sacrifice and do it like that. So just meeting that guy, that's my man. His name's Scooter. That's my man. That guy right now has over 200 some units, managed over. He got a big property management company, managed over 400 and some units. He got 8 employees. That guy, like, he changed my life and my perspective, like, forever.
That's dope. That's really cool. That's a bar in that you said you got to be more prepared than the lender. A lot of times we're going to the lender like, help me figure this out.
Yeah. That's not what they there for. They there
Right.
for to push paper across and go to underwriting. So it serves you better to go in there overly prepared. When I went in there, I knew real estate lingo and terms just from YouTube and Bigger Pockets and stuff. And then another key thing is I own something. See, it's different when you go in there and own something and you don't own something. See, it's a different type of now that you don't just skin, all that don't matter because the conversation is the same now. You get the same type of bars and it's the same type of language when I go in there and say, hey, I just got one, but I'm an owner though. I'm an owner. So like that put me in a position to like really scale.
That is so key. And that's kind of what I was saying when I was saying that first house helps you buy the big house. Like, ownership is like Ericka Williams always makes this point. She says that like after you own a property, 2 properties, when you go to the bank, the conversation's different. Now you are this person with this income 9 to 5, and oh yeah, I own 2 properties that also pay me $1,500 a month. Like, it's a whole different conversation, and there's equity in those properties, and they're gonna appreciate over time, and blah 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 blah. Like, there's a whole different world out there, and I think Eric Thomas might have said it, but it's the haves and the have-nots, those who have assets and those who have not assets. So you got to have you some assets so you can get to the other side of the game. That's dope, man.
And yeah, when you go in the bank and you own something, you a customer immediately. It's like you're not a soon to be customer. Like they like, okay, he got something that, we can put a lien on, we can collateral on different things like that. So now you more of an asset when you go up in there versus, hey, man, you think I can get a loan and different things like that. You're a liability because, like,
Right.
they can't check your profile out. Like, they don't know really what's going on with you. So,
Right.
like, that sacrifice we made in 2015, that seed we planted, man, that was, like, the best thing I ever did in my life.
I like it. So these days, are you using financing to buy your properties? And if so, what kind of financing? Like a line of credit? Are you just putting an actual purchase money loan on them? What are you doing?
So, like, my bank got different loan products. They really big. They not heavily regulated by the FDIC, and they a local lender. So with them being a local lender, they got like different options we do on different type of properties that I purchased. So like that first property that I purchased in 2015, I put that property up for collateral. So the bank took the first mortgage position on it. We was the second one. Out that one property, I bought 10 properties and came out of pocket $0. I didn't put nothing down. I bought that property for $15,000. It got appraised for $36,000 after we did some cosmetic repairs. So that, and I owned it free and clear. So they just took $28,000 and like $800, 80% of the 36. And so every time I buy a property, what will happen was if I go buy a property for $20,000, but it'll appraise for $25,000, they'll take the equity out of their first property. They'll collateralize the equity. It'll go to what I'm buying now. But once it appraised for more than I was purchasing, I had it on the contract for, the equity go back. It go back out. So I kept on doing that. So off the first property I put up for collateral, I bought 10 doors. I bought 10 property. The first time I bought 3 for 55. My guy Scooter, the guy like kind of like my mentor, I would tell you I met, he put me on that deal that he wanted to buy. So I just kind of went to the bank and I was like, I got it on the contract and I went to the bank. I was like, man, I got this deal. Well, I'm gonna go from here. And then she ran some numbers, and then that's when we did the collateralized thing. And so that's kind of what I do. So now I do collateral, which is I buy cash flow property with collateral. So say if I got some equity that in my portfolio, what I do is I just buy like if you were selling me a property, I'll buy the property from you fixed up with a tenant in it, and I just add that to an existing loan that I already got some equity in, and I just purchase those like that with tenants in it. I do the bird strategy on some properties, like in our market, we got cheap properties. So if I buy a $10,000 property and I got the line of credit for 30, 40,000, I just buy that. We'll run through it, fix it up. Then I put a tenant in it. The bank give me 80% loan of value. I refinance out of it. Then I got another thing. My favorite type of loan that I do is construction loan. Construction loan, basically, in my bank, you buying a property for 25, but it get appraised for 55. And my bank will give you 80% of the equity or the purchase or the AR after the ARV, the 55. So I get a line of credit attached to that house. So say I get $10,000 line of credit. That's my funds to repair the house. And I get 6 months interest only. So after 6 months, we are refinancing into a long-term 15-year loan. And why I like doing the construction loans, because sometimes, say me and my wife want to go on a trip, but if I want to do something, like I just inflated. So I know the construction is gonna be 10, but I'll be like 15. Now I got my 5 for we can go take our trip and do something like that. Cause it's basically like me, I'm paying Woods Family Estates a $5,000 general contractor fee. Cause me and my wife and my dad, we have to manage the work that's being done.
Right.
So I ain't doing it for free. So I gotta get paid. So that's kind of the 3 type of deals I do. So I buy houses, the tenant's already in it, it's already rented out. I buy a cheap house with a line of credit and I fix it up, refinance out, and I do the construction loan. And like I say, I like to do the construction loan because you get 6 months interest only. So now if you rehab the house before 6 months, you getting like 75% of your cash flow because you still only paying interest only to the bank until they term the loan out in 6 months. So think about if you buy a couple of those a year, and every time I'm doing a deal, I'm getting $15,000 line of credit to be able to repair the house. So you do 2, 3 of those, you got 40. You got 30, 40, 50,000 in lines of credit that you can keep to help float your business and pay employees and different things like that. So that's kind of how I do mine.
I love it. A lot of value in that last 2.5 minutes of conversation. That was dope. So when you're buying these properties, are you making sure that you're buying something under market so that you have that margin so that then you can get kind of creative with the financing?
Yeah, when I'm doing a construction loan or when I make sure the ARV is right, that's the only way the numbers will work to the bank so they can be able to, so they're not going to give you the money off the purchase price. They're going to give it to you off the ARV. So I make sure that's right. And when I'm buying the burp strategy, when I use the lines of credit, I make sure the ARV on those right. But when I'm buying, like, I call it cash flow houses. When a guy called me and say, hey, I got a house, $600 a month, 10 to stay in it, it's the numbers. I don't care what the purchase price is. I don't care as long as it cash flow, because I can call my bank and say, hey, I can send an email, put it on the contract, send an email, and my loans that got equity in it, I just add that to another loan. So I don't even care. I don't go look at it. I don't go do nothing because it got a tenant in it. I pass by it. I know it's making money. And them just my cash flow housing. That's why I try to tell people, like, my mindset kind of changed when I got out the job, because I was kind of like, man, I'm not buying all those houses that's going to take me 3 and 4 and 5 months to fix. I'm buying houses that produce cash flow from day one. So when we go to closing, some ideas, I get X amount of $1,000 worth of deposits. I get X amount of $1,000 worth of rent, because I done bought properties on the first, and I done got $3,000 worth of rent because the landlord had to give me the rent at closing, because I bought them the day of it was time to pay the rent. So that's kind of like, because, like, think about, in our market, like I said, it's not a high rental market. So if you buying all those properties that you got to continually fix up, you might can only do so many in a year. So I kind of tapped into, well, I'm gonna buy something that's gonna give me cash like right now, because when I left the job, that was kind of like my only income. So that's kind of the way I do it.
That's dope. I like
so
that
we
you
ain't
said,
buying all on rehabs over here. We buying cash flow houses and different things like that.
I love it. Honestly, homes with tenants in it are my favorite homes. They're the homes that I can get for the best price, and they're the homes that I can get usually with somebody who's lived there for a long time and they have no intention of leaving. And there's so much value in having somebody who's never going to leave, because at that point in time, you're buying consistency. People go to jobs not because they're getting paid the most, but because they know they're always going to get paid. And so the same thing is true when you buy a rental property. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to buy something, put it on the market, put somebody in there new at market, and hopefully they stay. I'd rather have somebody who has a connection to that house. They have memories in that house. They've raised their family in that house. And so that means they're going to pay me forever. And then after they pay me forever, they'll pay my kids forever. Like, that's the way I see real estate. I think what's really dope, and I really want you to talk about this, because a lot of us hold on to jobs because we don't know that this happens. But you said your mindset changed after you left the job, because at that point in time, you don't have the safety. And so your strategy kind of improved a little bit.
Yeah, so I was like, man, so the way I left the job was, I think we had like 20 some doors. And then when I was working, and it just got to the point where it was too much. So I ended up emailing my banker, and I was just like, can I leave the job and everything? And she was like, I ain't gonna tell you no. I ain't gonna tell you yeah. So one day I had a long day at work, and just the most important part of the story, I called my wife, and I was just like, man, I think this it. It was a Wednesday. I was like, man, this it. I can't do this no more. And she was just like, go for it, man. I went in the next day, put my 2 weeks notice in. At the time, only thing I was worried about and praying about, God, I don't know if we still gonna be able to get bank financing, because the W-2 income is very important when you're doing it. So I was like, man. Then my banker, she didn't say yes or she didn't say no, but I kind of just like went for it, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna make it happen. And I did that, and a year ago I did that. So October. And then this October made my first year. So after I did that, I was like, all right, I'm leaving the job. I know these 20-some doors, however many, it was something like that. I know this ain't gonna do it. So after I left the job, I was like, it's time to play big ball. So I gotta go out and go hard. So what I did was I ended up sending some We Buy Houses letters out, some direct mail, and a guy called me. He had one property for sale. And then I was like, I looked on the Texas website, he had more property. So I was like, let me pick out the ones I want, and then we can do a deal like that. So I was able to end up getting a contract with him for 12 properties. For 12 properties, all of them was rented out, except like 2 of them. So what ended up happening was 3 of them ended up having like bad title work. So we only was able to close on 9. But that was one of the biggest deals and we had did. And my mindset was like, I'm buying package deals. I'm buying multiple properties to increase the cash flow since I was out of the job. So I stopped looking at it like the refinance, that's cool, but that's only one door, one property. I don't want to do that no more. I'm out the job now. I want multiple. So that was I think that was one of my hardest deals, because it took a long time for the bank to approve that, for the simple fact that everything was kind of based off the rent roll and my wife's W-2 income, because I didn't have the income no more, but we was able to push that deal, dude. And once I got that deal, dude, and I had more money and more doors on the rent roll, everything else was just kind of like a smoother transition with the bank from then on.
So can we dig into that 9 package deal? What did that loan like on that? Was it a blanket loan?
Yeah, it was like it was 12 originally. So 12 originally, the purchase price was like $195,000. The purchase price was $195,000. So what they ended, I did a construction loan on, like I said, 6 months interest only. The banker, the appraiser came out and he appraised all the houses. The houses got appraised for $355,000.
Wow.
So remember I tell you, my banker they do 80% of the 355, deduct closing costs and the title work and appraisals. So I was able to get a line of credit and all those houses had tenants in them except one. And I was able to get a line of credit for $20,000. So I got a line of credit with that loan for $20,000, and I had the cash. It was tenants living in the property. So once I got service calls or tenants move out or different things like that, I just take a draw off that $20,000 line of credit I had attached to those properties and rehab the properties, fix service calls and different things like that. So basically, that's what type of loan I did on those properties right there.
So purchase price was $190, approximately.
$195. It was $195 with the 12. Then hold on, my bad. We went down to $167 because I said 3 of them had bad title work. 3 of them had bad title work. My original plan was to get $30,000 in repair and improvement funds, but I had to bump it down to 20 because they took 3 off the deal because bad title work. So the purchase price came to be $197, but the appraisal was $355. And you'll subtract the 3 from that. So like the appraisal was like a little bit over $250,000. So it was down there double what I was paying it for.
Right. And so how much was the actual loan amount?
The loan amount came out to be $167 plus the 20. Say the loan amount was a little bit under $200,000. The loan amount was a little bit under $200,000, but the portion of the 9 properties was like appraised for like $270 something, right at $280,000.
Got it. So you paid for the properties, you got the seller out the picture, you got an additional line of credit of $20,000, and then you still have like $70,000 in equity in that property.
Yeah. So now what I was talking about earlier, when I go buy those cash flow houses, I just add them to loans like that where I got them big equity spreads. So now I can buy properties where I don't got to go in and fix up and renovate and stuff. So that's basically what my bank doing. It's called cross collateral. That's all they do, cross collateral and the equity from another loan to help you buy another house where you come out of pocket. That's why I'm telling people. Some people say it take money to make money. I don't agree with that because I use OPM, other people's money. We bought over $2 million worth of real estate, and I ain't paid 0 closing costs, 0 down payment. I ain't came out of pocket since 2015 when I started doing this. So I kind of tapped into like you earn what you learn. I learned like how to do the loans, how to structure the deal with sellers and different things like that. I learned how to assess repairs to go to the bank and say, I need $20,000, I need $30,000, but I knew what to cut it off at so I could still have equity in those deals. So when I want to go purchase the cash flow properties and different things like that.
Yeah. How much did all of those doors rent for?
Our market is low, man. So like our market is low. I think all those doors was rented for like $4,000 and something. I think it was like a little bit under 43. A little bit under 43.
So net, you probably about like $2,000 in net cash flow per month.
Yeah, somewhere up in there. So my metric down here is between $200 and $250. Like I said, I stay in a low rental market. So I know other guys, when I be looking at guys like Doug Deputy and he talking about he getting $861 out there, I'll be like, that shit robbing the bank, man. You can't get that in my market. And like every market, and I got guys that I'm cool with out of town. They like, man, it ain't worth it in that market to me. And I get it because sometimes, think about you getting $200, $250 when you can go into other markets and get a little bit more. But you got to think about it. I said I put nothing down, brought nothing to the table. Only thing I'm doing is managing the debt. I'm just managing the company's debt and getting cash flow every month. And then you eventually build it up to where you're making over 5 figures a month.
Right. The dope thing is that you were already good enough. You like when you left your job, you were already good. And you're like, nah, I got to do better. But you have all that time. You bought your time back. And a lot of times it's like Robert Kiyosaki says, you got to retire yourself so you can then become rich. And so you use the $20 doors that you had at the time that you quit your job to then say, okay, now let's go even harder. And then your first deal was like half your portfolio. It actually would have been more than half if you would have closed it all. And now you scale to even more doors. So now we're at 32 doors. Where'd you go from there? How did you get those next?
So from there, man, and let me say about that deal, that was the most challenging deal I ever done because it was the biggest deal, man. It was a lot of appraisals. It was a lot of talking to the seller, renegotiating the price when we found out 3 of them title work, man. That deal was one of those deals where, like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to close the deal. Like I said, I was at the job and all the back and forth throughout the deal. Then the seller went on a cruise. So I said in that deal, like, I just stayed down, man. I seen it through, and I was just like, man, I know I got to take it there because I'm at the job. So after that deal, what ended up happening was I just started buying properties, like meeting sellers and different things like that, and buying properties. Like I buy 1 and 2 here, 1 and 2 there, and different things like that there. So it just kind of went on from there. And what it was, I think after that day, I did another package deal where I bought a couple of properties. We bought a couple of properties from a seller. And then we did the same thing, construction loan on those, 6 months interest. And then in between there, I do my refinances. That's like the bread and butter of the business, the refinances, refi the property, flipping the property to yourself, pull cash out. But what I was doing on my refinance, I wouldn't recommend for people who don't understand the business. What I was doing on my refinance, I get the highest appraisal that I can get. So once I bought a property for $18,000, I had to put a $500 central heating unit in it, and the property got appraised for like $42,000. So I went to close and I got a $32,000 check. So I paid my line of credit off, the $18,000 plus closing costs and things like that. And I was able to walk away with $15,000 and hold the house and still collect cash flow every month. But I get higher debt on those properties because in my market, the properties don't rent for a lot. You still at like 500 and something bucks. But I look at it like I got $15,000 of seed capital to go out and buy another property. I can go start another business, and a lot of different things that I could have done. So that's kind of the way that I do the refinances.
I love it, man. That is dope. So what was your most successful deal?
My most successful deal was, man, I say those when I bought those 9, man, because we stayed down. Like I said, it was very hard because of the seller. Him and his wife travel a lot. This guy, under contract, this guy then went out of town on a cruise for 30 days. So now I'm working through his
30-day cruise?
Yeah, I'm working through his property manager and his property manager and his employee service guy. And I'm dealing with them trying to see the property, get the appraisal over there. And the service guy helped me a lot, but the property manager, she wasn't in for it because she losing doors, she losing money. So when I try to contact her to get lease information and get information, she didn't care to really help me out. So like, I think that was kind of one of the most challenging deals.
Right.
That was one of the most challenging deals.
You have 50 doors. How are you managing those doors? Are you doing it yourself, or are you working with a team, or how does that look?
So right now, what it looks like is my wife does all the like phone calls and the paperwork and stuff like that there, and listing the properties and stuff like that. And I do like just like ripping and running, taking pictures, and put lock boxes on the properties and different things like that. And I got my dad set up as like my service guy, him and his guys, and they take care of that stuff for us. But going into 2020. We building a property management company because I get that question a lot. So while I'm building a property management company, because we got a lot of doors, and I'm not going to hand my doors off to a property management company that I can't see, feel, and talk to. So right now we have an office. So what ends up going to happen is we got a assistant that we hiring, a lady that's one of the best wholesalers out here in this area. I talked to her. She's going to come on board and be our assistant. And basically, I'm going to let her make the money from the property management company and have her managing the properties we manage from other investors and my doors. So now I get an assistant for free. The property management company pays her, and I keep my cash. I don't have to pay her. So that's kind of because I'm just like not wanting to hand my doors off because we study growing and study building, and I don't want to hand my doors off to nobody that I don't feel like I can see, touch, and feel day in and day out. So with them being in our office, and with her being in our office and working, I can go in the morning and see what's going on, see the updates and different things like that there. And it's kind of hard doing it because my wife does, and she has a full-time job. But this will be the last year of her working because we, like I say, I took it last year. We took it there. I'm gonna take it there this year. Just setting the goal high, and we just gonna make it happen. So it gets kind of intensive managing it yourself, but we done learn so much and different things like that that it's gonna kind of help out with the processes and the system when we do build our own property management company, so we know what to do and we can train them how we actually want to train them and things like that there.
The properties that you own, are they held under one LLC, or are they in your personal name, or how do you guys have that situated?
Everything is through Wood Family Estates. In my market, they say you're supposed to do 10 per LLC. But man, it kind of took off way faster than I thought, man. It took off way faster than I thought. And it was just gonna be a hassle, like I say, for my wife with her working a job, full-time job right now, and like managing this bank account, that bank account, that bank account. So we kind of kept it like that where everything is under there. We got a big insurance policy to cover us and different things like that to help us out with liability and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it's structured. But like my goal is to get her out this year. So we gonna kind of switch some things up and do it in a more strategic way. And that's why I be listening to people and they like, you got to know this, you got to do this properly. Man, when I started my journey, forget all that. I'm going for what I know. And I was on my grind trying to build what we got today. And I wasn't worrying about this LLC. I wasn't worrying about if I don't know this, I don't know that. Man, I was just going with the motions. And I'll figure out when I get to that point. I'm not going to sit around and wreck my brain about no LLC, or should I do this, or should I do that? Nah, I ain't got time for that. Got to move on to the next deal.
Yep. The key to success is action. A lot of people, they'll say, hey, you should rent where you own and then rent what you, I guess, and then own what you rent. But you guys own your home and buy rentals. Are you in favor of owning your own home while you buy rentals?
It just depends on how you do it. You know, we kind of stumble into it like that now. But as I grew, I was kind of like, man, what if I would have stayed over there in that other property? And then, like, but at the same time, we're having children and stuff like that. You got to introduce them to a better neighborhood, better area, better school zones, and different things like that. So I think you can still do it even if you do it that way. And I look at it like the business pays for everything. So even if I go out and purchase another home, like it's getting to the point where me and my wife and my children live for free. Only thing we got to do is wake up in the morning. As long as we manage and run this business and manage these problems, like Nip said, we never gonna lose if we handle this business. So long as we handle this business day in and day out, then it's like the rent roll pays for everything: the travel, the food, the car note, the truck note, our primary mortgage. Like that pays. You build a business up, pays for money. Because I stay in an area where you can make $60,000 and live good. So now think about if you build your real estate portfolio, if you're making 5 figures a month. You can't go nowhere here and spend all that money. It's just no way, probably nothing you can do. Now, if I come out there where you live, now that's a different type of deal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can get a 2,500 square foot house down here with an with an 800 and some mortgage payment a month. But if you come to your market, that's not possible.
No, no, sir. That's dope, man. I love it. I love everything about your store. I love that you guys weren't afraid to buy in the hood. You guys weren't afraid to just do what you've done and take action and figure out the rest later. Super inspirational. We talked about lending, which is something we haven't really touched on this show. So we really went in depth into how you guys use lending to create what you're doing. So super dope. I have a few wrap-up questions, and then I'll let you go enjoy your Sunday. The first question is, who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Man, beside my father, that's like a given. And guy at the school that I met, man, I just had to say I'd say Nip, man. That's one of my biggest inspirations. You know, Jay-Z, my guy, but Nip, like we got to see like the groundwork. We got to see him really put the work in and day out and take his people with him and like shed light on his people and give back. And like, so I say Nip, and like just showing success ain't got no look, you know what I mean? Like tattoos on your face, game boy, but you can still be successful. The status quo of what the people might think. And I think like that kind of resonates really well with my story. Not having no degrees, not going to college and barely finishing high school and different things like that to get to the point where you can run a business and you can take care of your family and give back. I'm like the most if you come to my section, I'm the most least likely person to be in the position that I am in today because of some of the things I did growing up.
Dope. Very cool. So what sets apart successful investors and business owners from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I would say the grind, man. Just being stuck in the grind and understanding the grind and not taking no for an answer. And when you get no, like why, what I need to do to go back and figure out what I gotta figure out, man. Just staying down, man, because there's gonna be things, been multiple things that came my way on this journey, but we stayed down and we just like figured it out. So I just like, you gotta understand your process to get to your progress. And if you can do that, then you can take it way farther than they could ever see you doing it.
Right. What's your favorite business or real estate book?
Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's a given. But I'd say one book that changed my life is The Power of Broke, because that's my story. Starting without nothing. I had a $30,000 a year job. Ain't no way in hell you can take that and build what we got today. Like, and then I quit my job on just like a whim. Like I'm gone. Like I'm gone. And so like reading that book, I kind of learned that like Damon John's stories, like you got other resources and different things you can tap into to help you continue to build. And reading that book about those other entrepreneurs that started with nothing, that took losses, but they just kind of stayed down and kept trending up.
Before I let you go, and I just thought of this question, but how are you getting lenders to loan on properties that are sub 50 grand? Because I know a lot of lenders, they're saying, oh, if it's less than 50 grand, we don't loan on it. Is it because you're working with a community bank or you have a relationship with that lender?
I have a relationship, first and foremost, and like, yes, a community bank. But so, like I say, they are a real estate bank. They love real estate investors. So like that bank, like I done bought houses for 13 grand and they didn't loan me the money. So they not heavily regulated like that there. So like that kind of helps out. And the relationships, man. So what I do is make it easier for my lenders. So when I want to buy a property, I send over all the rents, scope of work. Everything is kind of like in depth and detailed. So all she do is read the email, look at the contract, push it over to underwriting. I made her job like real easy. So she don't have to go look up, is this property in the flood zone or this and this. I let her know all that from the beginning. So I was talking to her one day and she was just kind of like, that's why she like working with us, because of like, we send everything over. It's full of detail. And now what you do, you make their job easy. Even with the appraiser, I make his job easy. So with most we got like 30 something odd units in one area. So we know the ARV, we know the ARV, the repair costs and the comps and different things like this. So when the guy come out to appraise, I put like a list of 3 of the recent comps together and he kind of judge it off that, where he don't have to drive around and go kind of do the research himself. So if you can do some of their job for him, then they'll do a good job for you.
I like it. Make it easy for people to help you. That's a bar.
Especially when you want some money, when you want their money.
Yep. Man, you dropped a lot of value. I don't even want to let you go yet. What does wealth mean to you?
Time, bro. Like I thought in the beginning, I was like, it's about money. I was like, I want like the money just upgrade. But it was like about now that as I grow old, I'm finna be 31. It's just like about time and continuing to grow in the business, finna be able to retire my wife through real estate investing and like being able to like work with my dad, get to see him every day and just being there with my children and stuff like that. It's just like time. So basically, as you acquire more assets, you just buying back your time and your assets pay for you to have time and like trying to go to the gym now and different things like that. So like just like wealth is just time, man. Just time is up there. You get money back, but you can't get time back.
Nice. I love it. It's an inspiration because it's like when you start jumping out there, you start doing things that people like in your family haven't done. You can kind of put a limit on yourself that's not real. And so for me, that limit was like 10 doors, 20 doors. And then talking to you like, oh, I got 50 doors. And then you're talking about somebody else who has 220 doors. And so I was like, I got to step my game up, man. We got to step into some financing. Got to start using these properties to collateralize the growth and looking for BRRRR opportunities, talking to community banks. So that's why I do this podcast, is so that I can get to the next level. And then
Yep. And to all the followers, man, I just say, man, like, stay down, man. Keep going. Like I say, coming from staying in a like not a highly income area, starting out with a $30,000 job where you're not making a lot of money, frustrated, like just being able to bet on yourself and understand, like, it's gonna be stuff that come with it, but we gonna power through it and we gonna do what we gotta do. Like, man, my wife never had the great jobs, careers, none of that, man. And that's why when people talk to us today, it's so much as an inspiration of what we're doing, because like, we didn't go to college. We ain't do none of that. That wasn't our lane. Not saying nothing wrong. You can still do it out there, but I'm just saying, like, just understanding, like, I got to find my place in this world, and if that don't work out for me, I'm going to go do this. And, like, just feel like we the true definition of just betting on yourself, like beating the odds. Like, started 2015, standing at the house in the hood. Now, like, we're growing to where we can go stay on the hills. I ain't going to do it yet, but, you know, that's the
if you
trajectory of
wanted
life
to.
that we had. Yeah. We can upgrade the living a little bit, but that ain't the end goal. The end goal is just keep sacrificing, keep building, and keep, you know, I got to get that S6 like Nip one day. So I got to get about, I got about 50 more doors to go.
Yeah, I love it, man. Where can people find you on the internet, on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, on Facebook? Where can they find you? Any of the products or any of the things that you're promoting as well?
Oh, they can just find me at 1-800 Hustla on Instagram. 1_800 HUSTLA Hustler. Anything, man. I'm trying to get my I ain't got all. That's what a question I need to ask you, man. I be looking at these people. I be like, how the hell they got 50,000 and 20,000 and 30,000? I was talking to a guy the other day. He was like, man, you got to put more hashtags and stuff like that under your video. I guess that's something that like work to make you reach people. But I was like, bro, I'm really trying to reach the people in my hood. Like, I don't really got to reach the world. If I can reach my hood first and different things like that and inspire and motivate them, I'll let the rest of that stuff kind of like take care of itself. So like, don't just find me on Instagram. You got any questions, DM me and different things like that. And I'd love to answer.
Very cool. Thank you for coming on the show. It was definitely powerful. A lot of people are going to take a lot of value from this, just from how you went from what you had to what you have. A lot of people can kind of relate to the beginning story. And so if they just take those action steps in the middle, they can get to the end where you guys are now. Thank you all for tuning in. I was sick this episode, but we powered through it. If you want to check us out, we're on gumroad.com/capital. All the products are there. LLC filing, any of the courses. Also, check us out. All the sponsor links are going to be in the show notes. My name is Charles Oglesby, also just Time Millionaire, signing off.